Hello everyone, and welcome back. In this video, I'm going to start talking about light passes, and for that, I'm going to use this file, which you find available for download with this class. Light passes separate the image into components such as direct light, indirect light, color, among other components. And when we have these separate passes in the composition, we get a lot of control when it comes to adjusting the image. We can, for example, adjust the intensity with which each pass will contribute to the final composition, or use adjustment nodes only in specific passes. And these possibilities allow us to make very powerful adjustments to the image. If we click on the View Layers tab of the Properties editor, we can see all available light passes in the Light subpanel, inside the Passes panel. If we enable the rendered viewport mode, we will also be able to visualize the light passes in the viewport shading menu. The light passes that are available for the Cycles renderer are slightly different from the light passes that are available for Eve. But the way of working the effects in the compositor is similar for both. And I'll talk a little bit about those differences later. In this class, I will talk about the diffuse passes, and about the glossy passes, which are the passes present in this scene. And in a future class I will talk about the other passes with another scene. So I'm going to talk quickly about the diffuse and glossy passes. The diffuse direct pass stores the direct lighting. This means that it stores the lighting coming from the lights in the scene, the light-emitting surfaces, and the world environment of the scene. The diffuse indirect pass stores indirect lighting. When diffuse direct pass lighting hits the surfaces of the scene, the light rays are bounced. These reflected rays of light also illuminate the scene. The illumination caused by the light reflected from the scene constitutes the diffuse indirect pass. The diffuse color pass stores the colors of the scene materials without the interference of direct or indirect lighting. This results in a solid preview of the scene colors. The glossy type passes store information regarding the reflection of the materials. The glossy direct pass keeps the primary reflection, that is, the reflection of the world environment and of the lights on the surfaces. Glossy indirect keeps the indirect reflection, that is, the reflection of the geometries themselves on the surfaces of reflective materials. Glossy color stores the color of some shader types where we can define a color for the glossiness parameter. As many shaders do not have this property, in many situations this pass will be neutral. Now I'm going to switch the view back to the combined mode. And I'm going to activate all these passes in the Light Passes panel of the View Layers tab. We have already seen in a class on the denoise pass that some passes are not affected by the denoise directly from the render. This is the case for all light passes. This means that we also need to enable the denoising data pass so that we can use the denoise node to remove the final noise from the render in the composition. After that, I can render the image. After the image is rendered, I'll enable the compositing workspace. I've already left the compositor interface set up for our composition. As we can see, the Render Layers node already has the passes that we enabled available. And if we click with the Ctrl and the Shift keys pressed on each of the output sockets, we can visualize the isolated passes by the image editor. But I'm going to Ctrl and Shift click on the Reroute node to reassemble the main composition. And I can cut the wire coming out of the final image to the reroute node by holding down the Control key, and right-clicking and dragging over the wire. Now let's see how we can combine these nodes to assemble the final image. We can call the complete image, from the image output socket, a beauty pass. This is the default image, which is rendered with all lighting passes combined. But so that we can take advantage of the possibilities of having the light passes separated, first we will reassemble the image using the light passes. To combine these nodes, we will use a series of mix nodes, configured with the add mode, or the multiply mode. The way these connections are made follows a standard structure. This structure can be seen in the Blender manual on the page about passes. If we scroll down this page, we will find a part that shows how to combine light passes. As the light passes are a little different for the Cycles renderer and for Eve, the way to combine the passes is also a little different. But the manual shows how to combine the passes for the two renderers. Let's start by looking at how to combine passes for Cycles, which is the renderer we're using for this scene. These arithmetic signs represent how the mix node should be configured to combine the passes. So, to combine the diffuse direct pass with the diffuse indirect pass, we must use a mix node configured with the add mode, as this plus sign shows. Then, we'll combine the mix node resulting from this combination with the diffuse color pass. And for that, we're going to use a mix node configured with the multiply mode. So, following these schemes, we can combine all the passes. Now, let's see how to effectively combine these passes in Blender. I'll start by creating a mix node in the Color submenu of the Creation menu. First, let's combine the diffuse passes. So, the first thing I'm going to do is connect the diffuse direct output socket to the first input of the mix node. And connect the diffuse indirect output to the second image input of the mix node. As we saw in the manual, the blend mode that should be used to combine these two passes is the add mode. So, I'm going to choose the add option here in the mix node menu. Now, if I want to see how the montage is looking, we can connect the mix node to the final reroute node of the composition. This image that we are seeing contains the information of the direct lighting and the indirect lighting combined. Those parts that are black correspond to the metallic materials in the scene. The lighting of metallic materials will be added to the composition through glossy passes, which we will see in a moment. Now, let's combine these two lighting passes with the diffuse color pass. For this we will need one more mix node. We can create a mix node through the Creation menu, or copy this mix node that is already in the composition. To copy the mix node, just select it and use the Shift-D shortcut. With that, the copied node will already start moving along with the cursor. Then, just click somewhere to set its position. To combine the lighting passes with the color pass, we can insert the node in the middle of the output wire of the first mix node. This will cause the wire to be connected to the first input of this mix node. Now, we can connect the diffuse color output to the second image input of this mix node. And, as we saw in the Blender manual, the blend mode of the mix node that combines the lighting passes with the color pass is multiply. So, I'm going to change the blend mode to multiply here in the mix node menu. And with that, we can already see the result of the combination of the three diffuse type passes: diffuse direct, diffuse indirect, and diffuse color. With this, we can already see the objects in the scene with the colors of the materials, and with the influence of lighting. But, as we can also observe, the image is without any glossiness. And this happens because the gloss is stored in the glossy passes. If we look in the manual, we will see that the way to combine glossy passes is the same as for diffuse passes. The glossy direct pass is combined with the glossy indirect pass via a mix node, configured with the Add mode. And the result of this combination is combined with the glossy color pass through a mix node, configured with Multiply mode. As this node configuration is the same as the one we used with the diffuse passes, we can select these two mix nodes and copy the two with the Shift-D shortcut. Now, we can connect the glossy direct and the glossy indirect sockets in the first mix node. And we can connect the glossy color pass to the second input of the second mix node. With that, we finish the assembly of the glossy passes. If we look at the manual image, we will see that the result of the combination of the diffuse passes and the result of the combination of the glossy passes must be combined with a mix node configured with the Add mode. So, for simplicity's sake, I can select any mix node from the scene that is already configured with the Add mode. And I can copy the node with the Shift-D shortcut. Now, I'm going to connect the result of the combination of the diffuse passes to the first input of this mix node. I will connect the result of the combination of the glossy passes to the second input of this mix node. And I will connect the output of the node to the reroute node of the composition. And with that, we get a result that is practically identical to the original render of the scene. The only difference is that these render passes don't have the denoise processing, so we can still see some noise in the image. So, in this kind of situation, we can create a denoise node in the Filters submenu of the Creation panel. Then we can connect the denoising normal output of the Render Layers node to the normal input of the node. We can connect the denoising albedo output to the node's albedo. We can connect the composite result with the node's image input. And we can connect the output of the denoise to the final reroute of the composition. In this way, the denoise node will act on all passes and will clean the noise from the final composition. When we start to have so many nodes in a composition, it may be that the wires of the nodes start to get scrambled. In this type of situation, we can insert some reroute nodes to reposition the wires and make the composition more aesthetically organized. Remember that to insert a reroute node, just keep the Shift key pressed and click and drag over an existing wire with the right mouse button. This is an optional step, which only serves to organize the composition. You can create as many reroute nodes as you want, and organize the nodes in the way that makes the most sense for you. And with that, we finalize the assembly of a composition consisting of diffuse and glossy passes. In the next class, we will use this same file to effectively see the advantages of making adjustments to a composition that has separate light passes. So, that's it for this class. Thank you for watching, and I see you on the next class.